How to juggle homeschool when you're coping with more than a mom should. I thought a lot about what I'm going to say in this video. I don't think there's any plan in it, right? I think there's just pouring my heart out and telling you some things that have worked for me when life has a way of beating me up, and maybe it has you too. And the longer you homeschool, which is actually just living life, we know the line between living and learning becomes blurred. But also, the longer you homeschool, the more stress can head your way. First, let me tell you who I am. My name is Tina Robertson. I've homeschooled well over 20 years with a lot of events that have gone on in my life because it's life. I have 3 homeschooled grads. I'm mentoring Mr. Munchkin right now. He's in kindergarten, first grade. But my children have gone from pre-K to high school and to college and adult now. So I just felt like this is a topic that if you're struggling, that maybe you will feel like you're not alone because homeschool is just flat out hard sometimes. It really can be just really hard. And so I want you to know some of what I thought, some of what I've been through, because maybe it will help you too. So the first thing I had to realize was I think as homeschoolers, a lot of us moms feel like control freaks. I have no other way of saying that except you know what I'm talking about. We homeschool because we're doggedly determined to do it our way, and that's a good thing. But along with that, somehow we feel we can control more than what we can control. And then also, I think sometimes we have a tendency to keep things to ourselves and not really talk about them. And I want to talk just a little bit about them, but also preserve my family's dignity and privacy. But I think I can get my point across without having to spill all, so to speak. But I want to spill enough so you know where I'm coming from. And also, I want you to know that sending your kids to public school sometimes is not the least stressful thing to do. So I'm walking a line here when it comes to oversharing, but also telling you what's going on. But first, when things happen the, in my life, it's felt like life can be like the cycle on the dryer. Tumble, 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 beat you up, wait, catch your breath, hold and repeat. That's the way I felt when I was going through it. And then if you're already not going through enough stress, then you just feel like more stress is heaped upon you. What more could go wrong? That's the way I felt like. I know that something terrible happened to my sister, who I love very much, one year, and something also hit our family, my husband. And both of them, I was in an ICU, didn't know if it would be life or death, but I shielded my sons because of their age from some of it. But they knew it was bad. And some of it they knew, obviously, because they were in the household. But of course, I protected them the best I could. So I finally realized when it come to stress or something else would happen in my life, I had to ask myself at the first sign of homeschool stress, what will I do? Well, you know, a lot of this goes back to understanding that it's not always the homeschooling that's to blame, right? It's not. It's life. This could have just easily happened to our family if my kids were in public school, right? So that I went with that thought first. So, and I knew I had to be at the bedside with both my sister and my husband. And, you know, not knowing if they'll wake up, those make for some pretty lonely nights, along with work that you have to keep the business going. We had our own business like a lot of homeschoolers do, and also keep school going with your children. So, one thing I realized was that some stress is unavoidable because of life. And like I said again, it didn't matter whether we were in public school or homeschool. So, here are 4 points where I realized when the first time something happened, and I was prepared a lot better for the second time, and I'm prepared now for the third time of tragedy when it hits our family. But look at these 4 things that I have learned from my kids, and I learned from those years of hardship, and I hope it helps you too. First, you're not alone. We drew closer together as a family, number one. If I had to put my kids in public school, we would be separated at a time when we really needed each other. And I have to remember, like any storm, it's just temporary. The circumstances are temporary unless it's not. Unless it's not. My circumstances, no matter how long it lasted for the year and the months, it still was just temporary. It didn't feel like that at the time. I felt like I had to do something drastic so my kids wouldn't be behind. But actually, it was better that they were with us and we were together as a family. Here's the second thing it taught my kids. It taught my kids to seize moments of friendship, both in the family and with their friends. You don't know what will change later on today, tomorrow, or in the future. So, homeschooling gives us the time to seize those moments and to spend time with those that are very, very valuable to us. Besides the fact that it produces high academic results, those were secondary during a time like this. The most important thing was that it allowed my sons and my children to see the fragility of life and how important it is to be with each other, which was way more important in my homeschooling journey then. It's important in my homeschooling journey now, and I'm glad I kept it at the top of the list. Also, with all the tragedy that we were going through, I was afraid my children would grow up way too fast. You know, we all, as mothers, we want our children to have that precious childhood. And I had to release myself and let myself that I can't control anything that I can't control, the control freak I am, but realize they had that childhood up until these things happen that we have no control of. But I can tell you this, it helped them to face the fears. And as adult men today, they know when to stop putting pressure on, on themselves when there's enough stress. And I just think about what a valuable life skill they learned. If they were away from me and doing their school like it was the most awful important thing right then, they would have not seen the value of what was more important in life. But by sticking with this, going with me up to the hospital, packing their backpacks, throwing everything in there, carrying food, nursing, sending drawings, doing school in wherever we were at, it taught them that they can bend to life, but it taught them that family and friends, that's what's most important first. And it taught them how to cope with it. They have coping skills. So now as adult men, they can be tender caregivers if needed to be, because they saw that. If they were away from me, they never would have saw that. They never would know. And also they wouldn't know how to stop putting pressure on themselves or anybody around them, because they were at the house. They saw the pressure, the stress we were under. Some adults don't know how to stop putting pressure on themselves when they're under stress. Oh, well, I'm under stress, I should just keep on with the same thing that I'm doing. That's not a good idea. You have to know when to hold back. I worried that it was too much for them. And no, I didn't share everything with them because they're children. It's my job to protect and shield them from those things. But they did know what was going on. If I had sent them away from me, they wouldn't have known any of these things. It really helped them to mature into the young men that they are today. But I was worried about it at the time. Also, the fourth thing, the reason I didn't send them back to public school or to public school is because homeschooling is about modeling how I want my kids to learn meaningful things. What would I be teaching them if I didn't set the example? And dare I say, maybe feed some selfishness? People are like, what do you mean by selfish? Well, the focus needs to be on caring for other family members. No, if this had been extended illness, this would be a different reply because they need their education. But to teach them how to care for a family member and care for others when their focus should be on them and not their self, that was important to me. So I do believe in the homeschooling lifestyle that it comes back full circle. Sometimes in life, we just need to be a caregiver. We're training for those things too. I knew their academics wouldn't be interrupted too long, but I wanted my kids' education to reach far beyond academics. And that was something else I had to think of when I was under the stress. But now, hear my heart. I'm not saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Sometimes there's things that affect persons mentally and they just can't. They just can't cope. And there's a difference between bending and breaking. And I never want you to get to the point of breaking. If public school is a solution, you do that. You do what's good for your family. I'm just letting you know that wasn't always the less stressful situation or less stressful option for us. It never was. And I was able to ask myself those four things to step back when I was going through that stress and say, okay, is that going to be less stressful, someone else's schedule instead of my family's schedule? Also, something else that I chose to do, there wasn't anything that I had control over when that happened, but there was one thing I did have control over. And that was how I viewed it. I had control over my emotions, my mindset, what I wanted to focus on, because bodies react differently to stress. And I chose to focus on the good. Some days, I allowed the stress to bend me, and I did feel like breaking in my heart of hearts, but I knew what was right for my family. And I felt that way, I would just stop everything. Because what's more important is your mental health, the love of your family, and not doing homeschooling at all cost. I'm not touting that. I'm just telling you that it bent to what was going on in our life. Public school was not the solution. It would have brought way more stress on me. But again, I didn't have any of those mental challenges. Yes, I felt like breaking a lot of times. Yes, I had a lot of nights of crying and being alone. But I realized from that, my children and we all drew closer together as a family. That's what I really wanted from our homeschool journey. So even though different things come up in your life, I want you to understand that sometimes there's things you can't control. Don't try to control them. Only control what you can, which is your emotions, what you choose to focus on. I chose to focus on the time we were spending together and how much we were, drawn close to each other. So this is what I did. I asked myself, what truly is important today? And live for today. Don't worry about tomorrow. That's important because it leads to my next point, which is identify the difference between stress and anxiety. See, stress is unavoidable. Some stress is actually good because we change and we bend because stress involves life. But it can turn to anxiety when we're worried about something that's never happened. If we're constantly worrying about something that hasn't happened, we're adding anxiety. That's not good. Anxiety is not good because we're worrying about something and it may never happen. And I had to rein myself in to say, okay, this may not happen. This is where we are today. The doctor said, well, this may happen. Okay, I understand. I processed that. It never did happen. They both recovered and they were fine. And we got back on a different schedule for homeschooling. But if I would have allowed myself to go there about anything, to worry the what if, I would have spent way more energy about the what if, and it would never happen. So that's what I'm saying. Identify stress versus the anxiety. Know when to cut back. And also, this goes without saying, if you can have any time for self-care, please make time for that. Please make time for that. Children need a mother that is loved and that loves herself and that is taken care of both physically and mentally. And if public school, returning your children to public school, you need to do that for your mental health, please do that. But just remember, if you don't, and there's just anxiety or stress, you can reel that in. Keep stress, okay. Anxiety, no, because you're worried about things that they haven't even happened. So don't worry about them until they do happen. That's how we model for our kids. That's how we model for our children. And then just always remember the last thing I want you to remember, and that is compassion over compulsion. Instead of making your children, oh, you have to do this, compassion for them, compassion for yourself. Bless and release yourself from all those things that are going on in your mind that you didn't control. No one asks for bad things to happen to them, whether it's a death, whether it's stress, whether it's caring for parents, whether it's special needs. No one asks for that. But I do feel that homeschooling is the only choice that bends mercifully to all of that, because you can control what is going on as far as what you're directing your attention to for the day. And that taught all of my children that the family was most, life is fragile, family, friends are precious, and academics, while important, had to take a back seat during that time. So if you need others, let others in. I'm not, even though I love the homeschool world, I don't have this whole huge circle that I just pour my heart out to people. I don't think a lot of us are like that. A lot of us have a pretty tight circle. We don't go all over broadcast at what our family's problems are, but try to remember to let a friend in or two. Let them know they can't solve it, but they want to know. They want you to know that they care. And if there's anything that they can do to help, then they want to help. I just want you to know I care and I understand. And I hope some of these tips that I shared with you will help you to juggle more, or to juggle rather, homeschool when life hits you with more than what you really should be coping with. I care. I just wanted you to know that. If you want to comment and say where you're from or what you're struggling with, you can. You can put it in the comments. If not, don't worry about it. I just want you to know I care about your homeschool journey and how I was able to do more than just survive, but thrive when I changed my mindset. Until next time.